The day began the way most of her days did. Isla Abbott had 4 children to get ready for school, a mother who was expecting her call, and a whole ordinary Tuesday stretching out in front of her. But at some point that morning, she walked into a tanning salon in Melbourne, and she never walked out the other side of it. A staff member who arrived for the afternoon shift found the salon door unlocked. A neighbour 3 doors down said she heard something, but couldn't say what. And Isla's mother, Amelia, spent 2 hours calling her daughter's phone before she finally called someone else. What had happened inside those walls? Why hadn't anyone heard her? And where was the man she was supposed to be building a life with? This was not a random act of violence. It was the final moment of something that had been building for years. Isla Abbott was born on the 4th of August, 1982, in Melbourne, Australia, to her parents Amelia and Abbott. From the very beginning, she was the kind of person people gravitated toward. Warm, grounded, fiercely, almost stubbornly present for the people she loved. She grew up in Melbourne's outer suburbs, the kind of place where people knew their neighbours and children played in the street until the light changed. Isla was the eldest child, and from early on, she understood what it meant to hold things together. She had a gift for it. Not the performance of it, the real thing. She was athletic and outdoors, the kind of woman who looked most like herself when she was outside, in the sun, in the open, with space around her. She had a smile that people remembered before they remembered her name, and she had 4 children who needed her every single day. 4 children she had built her entire world around. She dreamed of stability, of giving her kids the kind of childhood that felt safe all the way through. That dream was the thing she held onto, even when everything else felt uncertain. And it was, ultimately, the thing that kept her in the orbit of the man who would destroy her. She met Callum Harris when she was in her early 30s. He was 40-something, Scottish-born, broad-shouldered, with a quiet authority that a lot of people found reassuring. A meeting that would ultimately alter the course of her life. Callum Harris was born on the 11th of October, 1975, in Edinburgh, Scotland. He grew up in a city that rewards composure, that prizes a certain kind of self-containment. He learned it early, and he never stopped performing it. Those who knew him in Scotland described a boy who was charming in groups and difficult one-on-one. A young man who needed, more than anything, to be the most important person in the room, and who had a very quiet, very specific way of punishing anyone who made him feel otherwise. In his mid-20s, Callum moved to Australia. He was starting over, or so he said. He built a life in Melbourne, work, a social circle, a reputation as a reliable, steady, decent man. He was charming, easy to be around. People liked him immediately. They liked him until they knew him well enough to notice what happened when things didn't go his way. He had no criminal record, no police call-outs, no documented incidents. Not because nothing had happened, but because Isla, like so many women before her, had absorbed it in silence. By the time Isla understood what she was living inside, she had 4 children, an engagement ring, and a man who had spent years making her world smaller. She had also, quietly, begun to plan a way out. When Callum Harris walked into Isla Abbott's life, she was in her early 30s, a single mother of 4, anchored to her family, full of the kind of hope that comes after you have already survived something hard. He was older, settled. He spoke about the future in a way that felt solid. She let herself believe it. The early months were what you would expect from a man who understood exactly how charm worked. He made her feel chosen, seen, safe. He was attentive with her children, patient with her parents. He asked about her day. He remembered small things. He called when he said he would. And then, slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice it happening, the questions changed. He began asking where she had been, who she'd been with, why she hadn't answered sooner. He made comments about her friends, small ones, easy to dismiss. He questioned her accounts of her own days. He monitored her phone. He made her feel watched, even when he wasn't in the room. Isla's world contracted, slowly, incrementally, the way these things always happen. Each incident small enough to explain away, each one building on the last. Her mother Amelia noticed it first. then her friends, then her children, and finally, Isla. By the time she was ready to name what was happening, she had been living inside it for years. She confided in Amelia. She told her she was thinking about ending the engagement. She wasn't sure she could explain it. She only knew that something in her had shifted. That conversation, whether overheard or discovered or betrayed, reached Callum. And from that moment, something in him changed. Isla Abbott was born on the 4th of August, 1982, in Melbourne, Australia. And from the very beginning, she was the kind of person a room reorganized itself around. Her parents, Amelia and Abbott, raised her in Melbourne's outer suburbs, in a household where love was practical and present, where you showed up, where you stayed. Isla absorbed that early. She carried it her whole life. Those who knew her always mentioned the laugh first. Before her eyes, before her voice, before anything else. The laugh. Open, unguarded, the kind that arrived before she could stop it. Her closest friend said it was the first thing she noticed about Isla the day they met, and the last thing she thought about after she was gone. She was athletic, grounded, most herself when she was outdoors, in the sun, in the open air, with space stretching out around her. She had a way of making the people near her feel steadier than they were. Her mother Amelia said it often. Isla never made a room feel smaller. She always made it feel bigger. By her late 20s, she was a mother of 4. And if you had watched her on any ordinary Tuesday, packing lunches, doing school runs, mediating arguments over the bathroom, making dinner with one child on her hip and another tugging her sleeve, you might have thought, this woman was made for exactly this. Not because it was easy, because she was present for every second of it, even the hard seconds, especially those. Her children were her architecture, the thing everything else was built around. She had friends who called her when their own lives fell apart. She had parents who trusted her instincts. She had a life that was full in the way that only comes from choosing, again and again, to show up for the people who need you. She was not looking for anyone. And then Callum Harris walked in. He was older, Scottish-born, broad-shouldered, with a quiet authority and a softened Edinburgh accent that a lot of people found disarming. He smiled like a man who already knew the answer. He asked about her children before he asked about her. He seemed at first like exactly what she had been waiting for. He was not. Callum Harris was born on the 11th of October, 1975, in Edinburgh, Scotland, a city built from grey stone and cold light, where self-containment is not a personality trait, but a survival skill. He learned it early. He never stopped using it. Those who knew him in Edinburgh described a boy who was magnetic in groups and difficult alone. Not difficult in ways that were easy to name, difficult in the way of a person who keeps very careful score, who remembers every slight, every moment of being overlooked, every room where someone else held more attention than he did. He was charming, genuinely so. That was never the question. The question was always what happened underneath the charm when something didn't go his way. He was good at sport, better at the version of himself that sport allowed him to perform. Confident, physical, a man who took up space and expected others to arrange themselves around it. People liked him immediately. That was the consistent thing, from Edinburgh to Melbourne. He walked into rooms and people turned toward him. He had the kind of ease that reads as warmth until you know it well enough to see the calculation inside it. In his mid-20s, he left Scotland. He moved to Australia, Melbourne eventually, and he arrived with the clean slate that distance tends to provide. New city, new social circle. No one who remembered the earlier version of him. He built a reputation as reliable, steady, a good man to know. He was generous with his time when it suited him. He remembered people's names, their children's names, the details that made them feel seen. But those who got close enough, and there were not many, because Callum was careful about proximity, noticed something that they struggled, later, to articulate. A stillness that arrived when he was contradicted. A particular quality of silence when he didn't get what he wanted. Not anger exactly, something more controlled than anger, something that waited. He needed to be the most important person in the room. Not loudly, not in any way you could point to and name. But if you forgot it, even for a moment, he would find a way to remind you. Quietly, carefully, in ways that left no mark. In the beginning, Callum Harris was everything Isla had stopped letting herself hope for. He was present in the way that mattered, not just physically, but attentive. He remembered what she said. He followed up. He asked about her children by name, remembered which one was struggling at school and which one had a soccer match on Saturday. He called when he said he would. He arrived when he said he would. For a woman who had spent years being the one who held everything together, the experience of being held, even slightly, even partially, was disorienting in the best possible way. He made her feel chosen. Not in a grand, declarative sense, in the small daily sense that is, in the end, more powerful. A message in the morning, a hand on her back, the way he looked at her across a table like she was the only thing in the room worth looking at. She introduced him to her children carefully, slowly, the way a good mother does. He was patient with them, gentle even. Her parents, Amelia and Abbott, met him and found nothing to object to. He was polite, considered. He asked Abbott about his work and listened to the answer. He helped clear the table without being asked. He proposed within the year. Isla said yes. She allowed herself, for the first time in a long time, to believe that the hard part was behind her. It was not behind her. It was only just beginning. The first signs were so small, she did not recognize them as signs at all. A question about where she'd been that landed slightly differently than a question should. A comment about a friend. Nothing overt, just a small observation, delivered lightly, that she found herself turning over later, trying to understand why it had unsettled her. A moment where she changed her plans to avoid explaining them, and told herself she was just being considerate. He never raised his voice. He never made threats. He didn't need to. He had a quieter toolkit. Questions that were really accusations, silences that were really punishments, observations about her friends and her family that arrived so reasonably, so gently, that it took her months to understand they were a campaign. Her world didn't collapse. It contracted, slowly, incrementally, the way these things always happen. Control, when it is done well, does not feel like control. It feels like concern. Callum checked her phone the way attentive partners check in, casually, without ceremony, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. He asked about her day with the thoroughness of someone who was simply interested. He remembered details she hadn't realized she'd shared, and repeated them back at moments that made her understand, without anything being said directly, that he had been paying very close attention. She began to narrate her days before he asked. To account for her time preemptively, the way you do when you have learned that gaps in the story create problems. She stopped making plans without mentioning them first. She started to hear his voice in her own head before she acted, asking whether this was worth the conversation it would cause. That is what sustained control does, eventually. It doesn't need to be present to be effective. It moves in. His relationship with her children shifted with his moods. When things were good between him and Isla, he was warm with them, patient, even fun. When they were not, the children felt it too. Not through anything overt. Through a withdrawal of warmth so precise, it functioned as its own kind of punishment. Her eldest noticed it first. Children always do. Isla confided in friends, but carefully. He's just protective, she would say. He's under a lot of stress. She had learned, without being taught, to translate what was happening into language that wouldn't alarm anyone, including herself. Her friends listened. Some of them worried quietly. None of them knew what to do with a worry that had no single incident at its center, because that is the architecture of coercive control. It is not built from dramatic moments. It is built from 1,000 small ones, each individually explainable, collectively suffocating. Isla began to feel it, not as a conclusion she had reached, but as a sensation she couldn't locate. A persistent wrongness, a gap between the woman she had been and the woman she was becoming. She was quieter now, more careful. She laughed less, and when she did, it arrived a half-second later than it used to. She didn't have a name for it yet, but somewhere beneath the explanation she kept giving everyone else, she was beginning to understand. She told her mother on a Tuesday afternoon, not dramatically, not with a prepared speech or a list of incidents. She sat in Amelia's kitchen the way she had sat in that kitchen 1,000 times before, and she said it quietly, almost carefully, like she was testing the weight of the words before she committed to them fully. She was thinking about ending the engagement. Amelia didn't rush her. She had raised Isla long enough to know that the wrong response at the wrong moment could close a door that had taken enormous courage to open. So she listened. She made tea. She let the silence do what silence does when it is held by the right person. She let it be safe. Isla couldn't fully explain it. That was the thing she kept returning to. There was no single incident she could point to. No moment clean enough to hand someone and say, "Here, this is why." There was only the accumulated weight of years of smallness. The person she had stopped being. The laugh that now arrived late. The way she had learned to move through her own life quietly, taking up as little space as possible, anticipating his mood the way you learn to read weather. Something in her had shifted. She knew it. She just didn't yet have the language to explain it to anyone else. Amelia listened for a long time. When she spoke, she was careful. She told Isla she would support whatever she decided. She told her she was not alone. They talked for hours. It was the most honest Isla had been in years. No one knows exactly how Callum found out. Whether he had been monitoring her phone. Whether someone said something without understanding what they were saying. Whether he had simply been watching closely enough, the way he always watched, to read the change in her when she came home that evening. What is known is that something shifted in him after that conversation. Those around them felt it before they could name it. His friends said he became withdrawn, harder to reach. Her friends said Isla became more careful, more deliberate about small things, what she said, where she went, how long she was gone. Her children felt a new kind of tension in the house, the held breath quality of a space where someone is always listening. And Isla felt it most of all. Something had changed, and this time, she was afraid. She didn't make a single dramatic decision. She made a series of quiet ones. She updated certain documents. She had conversations she had been putting off. She moved things, practical things, important things, into places where she could reach them quickly if she needed to. She did all of this without explaining it to anyone, because to explain it would have required her to say out loud what she was only just beginning to admit to herself. She told one friend, "Not everything. Enough." She said she was frightened. She said she wasn't sure she could explain why. There was no specific incident, no single moment she could hand over as evidence. Only the feeling. The persistent, settling into the bones feeling that something in her life had moved past difficult and into dangerous, and that the distance between those two things was smaller than she had let herself believe. Her friend listened, asked if she wanted to call someone, a helpline, the police. Isla said no, not yet. That "not yet" is one of the most important and most misunderstood phrases in the landscape of intimate partner violence. It is not denial, it is not weakness. It is the product of a very clear-eyed calculation made by a woman who understood, better than anyone outside her situation could, what escalation looked like. She had watched Callum long enough to know that a formal complaint, a police report, a protection order, anything that made the threat official, could just as easily become the thing that accelerated it. She was not ready to name what was happening as danger. She was only ready to name it as wrongness. But the system does not have a category for wrongness. It has categories for incidents, for documented patterns, for evidence that can be filed, dated, and presented. It requires women to translate the full-body knowledge of living inside something threatening into the narrow language of provable facts. Isla had years of lived experience. She did not have a paper trail. So she prepared in the ways available to her. She stayed close to her mother. She answered Amelia's calls quickly, so Amelia would notice immediately if she didn't. She told her friend where she was going when she went places. Small threads carefully laid. A safety net built from the materials she had. She was trying to find a way out that didn't make things worse. She was running out of time to find it. The weeks before Isla's death had a particular quality that the people closest to her would spend a long time trying to describe afterward. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet in the way that pressure is quiet. The silence of something being held very tightly, by someone determined not to let it show. Callum was more present. That was the word people reached for first, before they found the more accurate one. He was around more, accounted for her time more thoroughly, arrived when she wasn't expecting him and stayed longer than he'd said he would. He was attentive in the way that surveillance is attentive, total, unblinking, with an agenda underneath it that had nothing to do with love. Isla moved through those weeks carefully. She had learned, over years of living with him, to modulate herself, her tone, her expressions, the amount of space she took up in a room. She did it without thinking now. It had become the texture of her daily life. But in those last weeks, the calibration required was finer than it had ever been. She could feel him watching for something. She didn't know exactly what. She only knew she couldn't give it to him. They went to her parents' home for dinner on a Sunday evening. Amelia had cooked. The children were there. It should have been ordinary. Abbott noticed it first. A sound from the kitchen, something dropped, nothing significant, and Isla flinched. Not visibly to anyone who wasn't paying attention. But Abbott was paying attention. He had been paying attention for weeks. He looked at his daughter and saw, for just a moment, the face of a woman who was braced, who had learned to expect impact.
He didn't say anything that evening. He didn't know what to say. Amelia called the next morning. She asked Isla if she was okay. Isla said yes. She said it the way people say yes when the real answer lives in a part of them they have not yet found the courage to open. Quickly, warmly, with just enough texture to be convincing. She asked about Amelia's week. She laughed at something small. She said she'd call later. She didn't call later. Amelia would think about that unanswered call for the rest of her life. The yes that wasn't yes. The laugh that arrived exactly half a second too late. She had heard it. She just hadn't known, yet, what it meant. What happened that night has never been fully established in a court of law. What follows is what the evidence shows, what witnesses reported, and where Callum Harris's own account breaks down. The neighbors heard arguing. Not the first time. The couple had been heard before, and people had done what people do. They had waited for it to stop, told themselves it was private, decided it wasn't their place. But that night the argument had a different register. Louder, more sustained. The kind that doesn't resolve, that circles back on itself and rises again. One neighbor said she stood in her hallway for several minutes, hand on her phone, before she talked herself out of calling anyone. She has not forgiven herself for that. A light was on in the house past midnight. Several lights eventually. The kind of movement through a home that doesn't look like insomnia, it looks like aftermath. Isla's 4 children were asleep in their rooms. That detail sits at the center of everything. The particular cruelty of it. Whatever happened that night, it happened in the same walls where 4 children were sleeping. They did not wake. Or if they did, no one has said so. Callum Harris spoke to police. He was cooperative, in the way he had always been cooperative, composed, considered, giving them what they needed to feel that he was not withholding anything. He had a version of events. He offered it without being asked for parts of it, which investigators noted. But the version had problems. The timeline he provided did not align cleanly with the emergency call records. His account of his own movements contained a gap that he filled differently in a second interview than he had in the first. Small inconsistencies, individually. The kind that can be explained by shock, by grief, by the ordinary fallibility of memory under pressure. Investigators did not believe they were explained by any of those things. They believed Callum Harris knew exactly what had happened to Isla Abbott. They were not able to prove it to the standard a prosecution requires, and so the inconsistencies sit in a file. The neighbor stands in her hallway in her memory, hand on her phone. The light burns in the house past midnight. The children sleep, and Isla Abbott does not come home. The investigation lasted months. Detectives gathered what they could. The forensic evidence, the phone records, the witness statements, the inconsistencies in Callum Harris's account that grew more significant the more carefully they were examined. They built a picture. Piece by piece, the way you build something when the person who could tell you the truth has decided not to. The charges were considered. Seriously, and for a long time. The prosecution did not proceed. The threshold for a criminal conviction is not the same as the threshold for knowing. Investigators knew. The people who loved Isla knew. Her friends who had watched her world contract over years and had not had the language to stop it knew. But knowing and proving are different countries, and the distance between them, in this case, could not be crossed. Callum Harris was never convicted. He has not been publicly charged. The case remains open. Amelia and Abbott have not stopped. They will tell you that themselves, in the particular tone of parents who have absorbed an unsurvivable thing and chosen, in the absence of justice, to become its advocates. They speak about Isla carefully, the way you speak about someone when you are aware that every word is both tribute and testimony. They say her name often. They say it deliberately, because the alternative, the silence where her name used to be, is not something they are willing to accept. One of Isla's older children is now old enough to speak about her mother. She does so with a precision that is almost unbearable to witness.
She remembers the laugh. She remembers the school runs, the dinners, the way her mother made every ordinary moment feel like it was exactly enough. She remembers the last time she saw her. She does not remember her mother afraid. She chooses to remember her brave. There is a photograph of Isla that her family returns to. She is outdoors, in the sun, in the open air. She is wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a plaid shirt, and she is laughing at something just out of frame. She looks like a woman who has her whole life in front of her. She was 41 years old. She was someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's whole world. The case remains open. If you know anything at all, the investigators are still listening. What do you think happened that night?